evening and welcome to Information Please, your Peoria Public Library on the air, bringing you information about your library and your community. This evening my guest is Roberta Koshalski, who is the co-chair of Peoria Reads 2016. Hi Roberta.
Hi Tricia.
We talked in depth about the book a month or so ago, but now we've got events lined up and we have so many events and they're so interesting that I really wanted you to come back so we could talk about these and maybe get people excited about coming to them, reading the book, read the book now, be ready, and then really enjoy all of these events. But for some, if somebody somehow has missed what Peoria Reads is over the past 12, 13 years, however long it's been.
First one was 2002.
Okay,
so,
2002,
yes,
so yeah, we're getting up
14th
there.
year, I guess.
14th year, next year is a big year.
Mm-hmm.
So what is Peoria Reads?
So it's our annual One City, One Book project where we try to encourage as many people as possible of ages this year, high school and up, to read the book and talk about it, whether you talk about it in a book club or whether you go to other special events or if you just talk about it over coffee with someone you have coffee with.
What's the advantage of having everybody in a city read the same book?
Well, we try to choose a book that's on a significant theme, a significant topic, a topic that people in Peoria might be interested in talking about. And so it brings people together and it allows people of different ages, socioeconomics, points of view to talk about a common theme. And through that, people get to know each other better.
Okay.
You know, we tend to talk to people who are like us.
Yeah.
And maybe through Peoria Reads events, you can meet people who are a little less like you in different ways. They're from different parts of Peoria, or they've had different upbringings and experiences, and so
or maybe
you grow.
Or even different ages.
Right, and so you grow through talking to others.
Ah, great. And so this year the book is?
The book is our Peoria Reads Planning Committee decided to go with a book on the Big Read list, which is a grant opportunity through the National Endowment for the Arts. And they have a list of about between 30 and 40 books that you choose from. And so our committee thought about a book that we hadn't read before, but we had considered before. We put together the grant. We got the grant. So that book is The Things They Carried by Tim O'Brien.
Okay.
It's right here. I don't know if we have a slide for it, but I can hold it in this direction. It's a nice readable paperback. I think it's less than 300. Yeah, it's way less. It's just over 200 pages.
It's an easy read.
Nice print. It was actually first published as a series of short stories about the author's experience in Vietnam. And but then it was compiled into a book. It does flow nicely because it's all of the same characters from the Men of Alpha Company. And so it reads like fiction. Well, it is fiction, but it's a semi-autobiographical account of the author's time in Vietnam.
Right, and the people he knew. And
right. And so I hold up this book because we do have multiple copies through our Big Read grant. And so if book clubs or individuals, high school, college classes are interested, we can supply copies to them.
Which is great.
Just by contacting
And of
the
course
library.
there's plenty to check out at the library. And we have electronic copies if you're like your ebook.
Right. It's in all formats. And so
is there an audio book? I don't remember.
It seems like it is available in audio. I think that we weren't able to purchase additional new copies of it. And same thing with large print. It's no longer published in large print. So for that you may have to try eBay or Amazon or something like that.
But this book has become an American classic, which most of the books on the Big Read list are. And the good thing about that is then you know all these other people across the country have also read this book and have that as a frame of reference. You could be traveling, you could be at a cocktail party on business and run into somebody who's read this book and discussed it.
And we are finding, as I contact our local book clubs to see if they'd like to put it on their list for 2016, that a number of the clubs have already read the book last year or the year before. but that doesn't preclude them from taking part in the events this next year. And also, some of our book clubs that may have already read the book are reading one of the author's other books.
Ah, okay.
And so with book clubs, our Peoria Public Library sponsored, so to speak, book clubs are listed on our website under events. And so if you see a club that's doing a book by Tim O'Brien, these book clubs are open to the public. So you can just go ahead and go to that book club
join
meeting
in.
that
It's
day.
not a private club.
Right. You can go in. You don't even have to have read the book, but it's a nice way to see how the conversation is, see what kind of people are in the club, see how the club runs, and maybe get to join a book club or pop in even on days that they discuss books that you're interested in. So,
Right. Cool.
for example, the Biography and Nonfiction Book Club next in February 2016 is discussing Tim O'Brien's nonfiction book called If I Die in a Combat Zone, Box Me Up and Ship Me Home. So
Cheery title.
And that's I think even a bit slimmer than the things they carried. And then the Bibliophiles, which meets monthly at Lakeview Branch, has chosen another one of Tim O'Brien's novels called July, July.
Oh, okay.
So it's interesting to read something else by the author and compare it to the things they've carried if you've already read it.
And of course, you'll be choosing books for younger readers, companion books for the early learners, and we've even got some picture books, I think.
The most well-known picture book is called The Wall by well-known children's author Eve Bunting. And then I came across at Lakeview Branch a story in poetry about a young girl living in Saigon with her family who had to flee at the time of the fall of Saigon. And she and her family move or get placed in Alabama.
Wow.
And, it's her, through poetry, day by day, month by month, you learn about, the time when she's in Saigon and the world is crumbling around her, and then going to Alabama, where at one point she said, even how bad Saigon was at the end, I'd rather be there than Alabama. She's in a new place, she doesn't know anybody, but it's
very,
just
very
remarkable.
timely considering what's happening in the world today,
Right.
with the events in the Middle East and controversy about refugees and people moving from country to country, and
and others trying to understand them.
Yes, exactly.
So, yeah.
Well, let's talk about, you talked about a couple of the book club discussions, and there will be, this is not a complete list of events yet, and for that people can go to peoriareads.org and keep checking, and we will have more information out and more publicity out about other events. But we do have quite a few scheduled already, starting already in February.
We've got scheduled 2 film showings, I believe, so far. The first one is in February. It's the film We Were Soldiers. And what we're going to do is show the film and then have a brief discussion of it afterwards. Just like with books, it's great to read a book, but it's always nice to talk about it with somebody afterward and share that experience. So in February 6th, we're showing We Were Soldiers, 1:30 at the main library in the auditorium.
And of course, that film is about the very first big battle that Americans fought in Vietnam, and it's based on a book for those who like to read the blow-by-blow of a battle and how it unfolded. The book goes into great, great detail.
And of course, we have the book at the library available for checkout. And that's why I think we chose to show this film in early February, beginning of the war, as before most of our other events are starting. So people can come out and see that. And then, let's see, well, in a few weeks later in February, on a Sunday afternoon at North Branch, that's Sunday, February 21st at 1:30, we're showing Good Morning Vietnam, which I think maybe more people have seen just because Robin Williams starred in that.
Yeah, Robin Williams, and it's very enjoyable because, of course, Robin Williams always was enjoyable. Comedy, but it's about a disc jockey who gets transplanted, and sent to the front lines to run the radio station, and of course the authorities that be don't really care for his brand of humor. But at the same time, it talks about him going out into the city and trying to meet people who lived there. And so it's a good look at what people who were stationed there did and what happened.
A much different view of
Yes.
Vietnam. And then we have other films that are still in the planning stages, haven't made it on the early events list, but one possibility that we may show or at least have available for people to borrow and look at with their groups is a movie that came out in the late 90s called A Soldier's Sweetheart. And it's based on one of the chapters of the things they carried. The chapter is called Sweetheart of Song Trebong. And that was a river, I believe, in Vietnam. And I was just amazed that they made a film of this, and it follows very closely with that short story. It's about, an hour and a half film, but it's about, in this same Alpha company, one of the soldiers decides he should ship his girlfriend here from Cleveland, Ohio. And, you could do it. It'd be some interesting logistics, but you could fly her from Cleveland to here, to Bangkok, Saigon, and here, whatever, here she would be. And all the troops are going, yeah, whatever. And one day, there she, the helicopter that brings other supplies drops her off. And what happens to her in with the troop? It's a very thought-provoking film. I just watched, I bought a copy and watched it last weekend. And it might be something we'll add to our events list. But much of the things they carried seems to border on reality and fiction. Reality,
yes, you can't
fantasy.
tell. And reading that book, you can't tell what really happened. What happened, what didn't happen.
Yeah, so it makes it very interesting to think about.
Yeah.
But that's another film we may show. And we can move on to some of the more keynote type events.
Yes,
the kickoff.
the kickoff.
The actual kickoff is, we're having it at the end of February, Sunday, February 28th, which, if people are familiar with Music in the Mackenzie, the monthly music program at the North Branch, a local group called Random Strangers, which is Chuck Mayhew and Steve Fairbanks, who play 60s and 70s music. So, perfect time period. We're going to have Councilman Eric Turner come and introduce Peoria Reads, and we'll have copies of the book available for people to pick up for free.
And of course, Councilman Eric Turner served in Vietnam, and Steve Fairbanks served in Vietnam. I don't know if the other musician did, but...
Yeah, and so we've got... we'll have, again, events lists and copies of the book to hand out and get people fired out about
so
coming.
much of that era was influenced by the music. The music was changing so rapidly, and I'm not sure anyone can think about the Vietnam War without thinking about the music, from the protest songs to the rock to, just everything that was happening artistically. But I think art always explodes at a time of upheaval. At the time that people are unsettled and things are changing and people are unsure, somehow that always seems to create this great explosion of art. And certainly the Vietnam War era.
The need for an outlet, and people express themselves in different ways through music, art, dance.
But that'll be a lot of fun, a good chance to get a copy of the book and kind of get in the mindset,
And then in March, mid-March, Saturday, March 19th, this will be at North Branch at 2 o'clock, an author named Nissa Ree, who is from Chicago, is in the process of writing a book about Vietnam War veterans who go back to Vietnam and help clean up the area, get rid of the unexploded bombs, clean up after the landmines, too, and then raising money for victims of Agent Orange. And so she's going to talk about what she has learned from these veterans, what they do, and she's bringing one of the veterans named Mike Kerber to Peoria to talk about his experiences as he goes back to Vietnam and helps and kind of acts as ambassadors to reunite families, or just to be, to try to enable good relationships between the Vietnamese and Americans. So that'll
That's
be,
an interesting concept, and it just always makes you wonder, what was the war all about? You know, and I hope someday we'll be wondering that about other wars. But
well, we have a lot of people now, as you and I age, so many people who were not alive during the Vietnam
and
War.
don't know anything about it.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
tying in further to music, well, we're having a program that was done for Ollie a year or two ago when
Which,
we
of course, is
did
the Osher Lifelong
Learning Institute out of Bradley University. One of our staff members at the time, Stacy Peterson, who now works for the city of Peoria, did a program on protest songs through history. And so Vietnam era was covered, and she's going to repeat that program at the North Branch on Wednesday, April 13th at 6:30 in the evening. Then, when we talk about music of the Vietnam War era, a person, a music instructor at Columbia College surfaced in our research for programs to tie into the things they carried. His name is James Kimo Williams. Kimo is a nickname.
Yeah, it's a Hawaiian name for him.
Yeah, and so he does program. Well, he served in the
really
Vietnam War.
interesting
Yeah, he's
person.
got a long, amazing biography, but he was influenced. He went to a Jimi Hendrix concert like the day before he was headed to Vietnam.
Right.
And he was very influenced by Hendrix music. And in Vietnam, he was building bridges or, working as a soldier for some time, but then they found out about his musical abilities, and then he was playing music for his fellow soldiers. And he came back from the war and continued his education in music, which he had no education in music before that.
Right.
But he became educated, and now he is a professor. Well, he's composed symphonies, and he is an associate professor in the music department at Columbia College.
But he's done things like he had composed special music for West Point Military Academy. He has a symphony that's been played around the world.
You can find him on YouTube.
Yeah, and
He performs with his wife as well.
he's a member of the Lieutenant Dan Band, which plays classic rock and
Member
roll.
and co-founder. Yeah, I guess that. Well, Gary Sinise, the actor,
yeah.
he and this Kimo Williams founded it in 2003, and then Kimo Williams toured with them for about 8 or 9 years, and so he's.
And
I'm
they
so
went
happy
and
we
did
had covered
USO
him.
shows. Having been
Right.
a veteran, he was interested in helping veterans, so they did USO shows everywhere.
And then an unexpected piece to his resume is he also does programs that tie in core values for kids, helping kids develop core values and figuring out their piece in the their place in the world.
We should talk about why. It's because of his childhood.
Well, yeah, he was a.
He had a very dysfunctional childhood. His parents split up, and I don't even know if they were ever married, and passed him around. He went from big inner cities to working on cotton
Sharecropper.
cotton sharecropper. He ended up in Hawaii with his father, who had a problem with alcohol, and that's when he began playing guitar. I think was in high school.
Again, using art and music to express yourself
But
during instability.
somewhere he saw the worst of the racial segregation and hatred in the South, and he says in his biographies that the day he saw a man beaten at a bus stop simply for being black was the day he decided that nobody and nothing was going to stop him, that he didn't care, that his family wasn't there to help him, that his family dragged him down, that he was going to succeed and he was going to be what he wanted to be. And of course, he went on to, make it through high school with just a dysfunctional father. High school is difficult enough when you have a fully functioning family, but he was a star athlete, he was a musician, he succeeded at everything he did, and he brings that thought that I am on my own and I will make it happen no matter what my surroundings to these kids.
And so now he's speaking to kids, high school age, to inspire them and let them know that, this is a path that you can take to lead to success.
Yeah.
And so we're having him twice, 2 days in a row. Thursday, April 21st at our Lincoln branch at 6 in the evening. And then the next day, Friday, April 22nd at 3:30 in the afternoon at our North branch. At the Lincoln branch event in the evening on the 21st of April, he's going to talk more about the developing core values in young people. And on Friday, April 22nd at the North branch at 3:30, it's going to be more his musical experience through the Vietnam War.
That will be
and after.
very interesting to anybody who's interested in seeing, what's your career path, where do you go, because he goes into great detail about all his different, seeing Jimi Hendrix and where he went from then, and I mean, ending up being a composer of a symphony. You wouldn't think that someone who was turned on to music by Jimi Hendrix would end up composing symphonies
Right.
and military music and jazz and classic rock, but he's very diverse.
Yes. I'm just so glad that we stumbled upon him basically online, and so end of April.
Yeah.
I'm coming twice.
Well, we've got about 5 minutes left. I want to talk a little bit about the people that bring us these grants. We're the National Endowment for the Arts. So if you can tell us about who
Okay. I want to say
provides this.
one more
Oh,
thing,
sure.
mess up your outline, but essay
That's fine.
contest.
Oh, the essay contest,
We've
yes.
got, as we mentioned, The Things They Carried by Tim O'Brien is appropriate for high school students. And so we are working with the high schools in Peoria and beyond, whoever is interested. If you want to get a class set of the books, we're having an essay contest, just asking students to write a maximum of 1,000 words on the topic, what would I carry? The first chapter of The Things They Carried is called The Things They Carried, and it talked about what the soldiers carried, whether literally or figuratively. So essay contest, essays are due on St. Patrick's Day. And there are 2 classes, 9th and 10th graders, 11th and 12th graders grouped together. There will be some judges, of course, and fabulous prizes, including a copy of The Things They Carried, autographed by the author, and Barnes & Noble gift card. So I'm hoping
nice.
that students will read the book and think about it and write a short essay about it.
That's a great way to incorporate some outside activities into the classroom for English or history or philosophy, religion classes, whatever it is you're studying.
Right.
So.
And so back to our funders. The National Endowment for the Arts is a federal agency, of course, and they provide all sorts of grant opportunities. The Big Read has started in, I'm guessing around 2000. I know we had 4 years of the Big Read when we read To Kill a Mockingbird, Fahrenheit 451, The Great Gatsby, and The Maltese Falcon.
Right.
Those were all Big Read titles. We got a grant this year for $10,000, so that covers multiple copies of the book.
That's what let us get the book out and bring in speakers.
Bring in speakers, yes.
Which the years that we don't have that funding, that's difficult for us to do.
Right, and because you want to have copies of the book available for use in classrooms and so on, but you also want to bring in events too.
Yeah.
Excuse me, for people who just get the book on their own, library, buy it, iPad. You want something to bring people together to talk about it.
Yeah.
So that's NEA. And if you're interested in finding out more about the things they carried, go to neabigread.org. You can see all the books covered by the Big Read. I need to take a sip.
Yes, everybody at the library has come down with the same thing, and we're all coughing.
But on neabigread.org, you can find teacher's guide and reader's guides.
Oh yeah, those guides are wonderful. So if you're not the kind of person who's going to go ahead and come to a program and pick up, you know that you can go to NEA.org and you can download something for your classroom. You can download a discussion guide to have with your family around the dinner table. Or you're going to get your 5 girlfriends together and go to breakfast and talk about it. And so you can get the same materials that we're doing at the big, formal programs and do them very informally. They're a great thing to do if you just want to read that book by yourself and quiz yourself.
Some thoughts, some additional information. There's also an audio guide, so you can listen to people, probably some well-known, some literature experts, some Vietnam experts talk about the book as well, right there on the NEA website.
Which is nice, kind of like listening to the radio a little bit. Yeah.
So, and then often we get funding from other places. This year, depending on need, our Friends of Peoria Public Library supports us in many programs.
Yes, they do.
And so as needed, they support us with our annual Peoria Reads project as well. Can't do a whole television program about Peoria Reads without mentioning Commonplace, our partner in all of this.
Yes, of course, Commonplace has been our partner since the very beginning.
Right.
And they do so much, and they do a lot with beginning readers.
Of
Adult
all
literacy
ages,
programs.
yes. And so they will be using the book and having discussions of the book, whether it's one-on-one with the tutor and the adult learner, or with small groups that are improving their reading skills and reading portions of the book out loud.
Yeah. Well, we're out of time, so it's a good thing we don't have any more programs planned yet. To get all the information on Peoria Reads, visit peoriareads.org. There'll be a full listing of all the programs, things get added. People call us up and say, I'm going to do this for it, so it's something to keep checking back on. If you're interested in getting a group of books for your classroom or your group, just call the library and we'll make that happen for you. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week on Information Please.